Maybe you also got the news. You see this blog post here by Jimmy Bogart, the creator of AutoMapper and Mediator, saying that these two libraries are going commercial. Now, there is absolutely nothing bad or evil about that. I totally understand this. We all have to support our families. Time always is an issue. Still, I thought I love Mediator, but in most of my projects, I don't actually use everything of Mediator. Most of the time, I just use this teeny tiny little Mediator pattern, meaning I need the sender object, and use the structure, meaning use the iRequest and the request handler interface. And then I thought, why not build this by myself? It is really not that much. If you also want to build this by yourself or download the source code, check out the video description below, and please follow this video and maybe hit the like button. Thank you very much. So to build this ourselves, I just create a .NET Core Web API, call this my Mediator, because the main emphasis here should be using or building the Mediator pattern by ourselves using reflection, as you will see in a minute. We just use the standard stuff here, .NET 9 it is, so let's create our project real quick. There we are, and what I want to do real quick is add a new folder and call this my Mediator, custom Mediator, whatever, and we will just put everything in here so you see all the code that we need. Now, if you have the Mediator NuGet package in mind by Jimmy Bogart, then again, the main things you need there are these interfaces, iRequest handler, and then the iSender. So this is what we will start with. So I add a new item, call this iRequest. Real quick, the Easter sale at the .NET Web Academy is starting today. So if you want to get a huge discount on any course or membership plan at the .NET Web Academy, now's the time to join. The link, as always, in the video description below. This is a public interface, but we want one more thing here. We want the type of the response in there as well. Pretty similar here now is the iRequest handler. So let's add this interface as well. So iRequest handler it is. And here now it is a bit more, because with that we also need a handle function, but first the definition of the interface. So here now I got the request handler. This thing takes the actual request, right? And GitHub Copilot is already suggesting some stuff here. And then also the response. So T response it is, but we have to pay a little bit attention here because we want to add a little constraint. We say where the T request is exactly implementing the iRequest interface, right? So the typical way to implement this then later on, or to use this, you will see that later, is we have a request implementing the iRequest interface, and then a handler, and then in that handler we will add a handle method. And this is also then CQRS in action, as you will see again in the example later. So please bear with me if you don't understand everything that I'm typing right here. I will explain everything throughout this video, so please keep watching and make sure to watch it until the end. Now, GitHub Copilot is suggesting the following: task response handle. This is exactly right. And this handle method is taking the actual request, also a cancellation token if you need it, and then will return the given response. All right, that's that already for request and request handler. And the next thing then is the sender object. This is typically that stuff that you want to inject wherever you want to use the Mediator pattern or this my Mediator package, then maybe instead of using services, stuff like that directly. So add a new item, iSender it is. And now here we have another method, task T response. All right. And then here we say send T response. GitHub Copilot already suggesting some stuff, but let's type it out ourselves. So a send method with the response again and again. It takes an iRequest. This is correct. Returning a specific response. We call this request, and again we have the cancellation token. This is correct, but we don't need the second method. cancellation token it is. And again, please let me remove that. Jesus, Visual Studio, just remove this line here. All right, this is everything we need. So our sender has this method. In the end, what we will do then is we will have a request and use this send method here of our sender object to send this request. And our mediator then, this is the magic of the mediator pattern, will know what handler to use, right? And then return the response that we actually want. All right, now comes the hard part. We need to implement the sender here and then also a mediator class. So first the sender. Here now, again, add a new item, and this will be our sender. Now we implement the iSender interface, and now very important, we put the iService provider in here as well. Now why is that? Well, we store a reference of this built-in service provider, or more the service container here, so our dependency injection system in the end in .NET. And then we can ask this provider for services later. All right, this is why we need this thing. And as you can see here, we have to implement the interface. So let's do that. And now here again, we see our method, task T response. This is what we return. We have the name sent with the response again, and it grabs the request, and we can use the cancellation token if we want to. All right, so send a request, return a response, where the T response is the type of a response that we are expecting. All right, and now comes the magic. Here in our implementation, we have to find the specific handler that is supposed to handle that request that we gave him it, the send method. You know what I mean. So what we do is first the handler type. How's this done? First, we say type of. All right, GitHub Copilot, but let me type it out so I can explain it. iRequest handler, any generic or any iRequest handler. We're looking for any iRequest handler that we got here. Make a generic type. This is correct. All right, so what does the tooltip say here? Substitutes the element of an array of types for the type parameters of the current generic type definition and returns a type object representing the resulting constructed type. Makes sense, right? So based on the actual request and the response, this is then the handler that we get. I hope this is clear enough. It is complicated, give you that, but it is only a couple of lines that we need, and then we can already replace the actual mediator library. If you only want to use that. We have no pipeline stuff like notifications, for instance, but still, most of the time, this is all you need. Anyways, now here, the suggestions actually are exactly right. We give this thing our request type, all right, and then also the type of the response, and this then will give us our handler type. Now with that handler type, we ask the dependency injection container to give us the handler that matches this type. So we need the dynamic type here. I know, don't use it often. And then here, exactly, handler. And this is then our service provider get service handler type. So we're using the dynamic type here because we don't know at compile time what type of handler we got here. And if we also use the get required service method, then we have no warning here. So this says get service of type service type from the iService provider. This means that the service or the handler, you name it, is registered here within our provider, and that's why we can ask the provider to give us the handler that is handling this specific handler type. So many handlers, and in the end, and then the error is gone, we return handler handle, our handle method that we have to implement, right, with the dynamic request and also the cancellation token. That's absolutely correct. All right, this is the sender. Now we need an implementation of the actual mediator where we also register all the handlers automatically. And the beauty with that then is similar to the actual original Mediator package, that we can or we are able to only register the Mediator in our program CS. We don't have to register all the services, all the handlers, and so on. One little line in the program CS and we are done. All the other magic is done or implemented in our little Mediator. So let's save everything so far. And now again, one last step. Now we have our, let's say, my Mediator CS. Now this is a static class because we want to implement an extension method. So again, with that, then we can, for instance, right, add my Mediator in the program CS, right? So here it is public static iService collection, then add my Mediator, and here for the extension, we use the iService collection. But one more thing, we can add an assembly that could be null. So assembly it is, by default it is null, and to be able to use that, we use reflection. All right, now the first thing, if the assembly is null, then we'll use the current one, and then there we will scan for all the handlers, all right, in the current assembly or the given one. So assembly, if it is null, yes, assembly gets calling assembly. It is, as you can see here, returns the assembly of the method that invoked the currently executed method. And again, you can download the complete source code, just use the video description or the link in the video description below. Now, next thing we want to do is we need to register the sender, right? So here we write services, add scoped, iSender, sender it is. Already one thing we don't have to add in the program CS, so it won't get bloated, right? Next thing now is actually the handler interface type. So let's just store the generic request handler interface, right? So we won't have to write it later. What do I mean by that? Actually, this thing here, right? So I can actually copy this here and then, nope, here now. Sometimes it's hard with GitHub Copilot, have to admit this. So here now, what we have is the var handler interface type, and that would be this thing. So type of iRequest handler with any request and response. All right, and now comes the big one. Copilot already suggesting something here. It's looks correct, but let's just see. We write it ourselves, and then we'll see if this was actually correct. You can rewind, of course, or go back in the video and then just compare, because maybe it's. Let's just see. Well, it's correct that we want to get all the types from our assembly, but we also want to filter them. So here now, where the type, which in the end is the class, so is class is actually correct, but I just want to check that, or look that it is not an abstract class, and the class that was missing, that's correct, and the class is, or the type is not an interface, right? Like that. And then from that, what I want to do, so abstract and interface is filtered out, so hopefully we only get classes. And these classes then implement a certain interface. So we want to get these interfaces where the generic type then is our handler interface type, right? So actually we look for every handler in the end that is implementing this interface here. And from that then we grab the interface, the actual interface, and the implementation. And when we got these two, we can register them similar to this stuff here, right? So that's how we don't have to register every new handler or every new service manually in our program CS. Reflection magic somehow. So select many, and then let's see, type get interfaces. Let me remove that. I prepared something else. So let's see, type is get interfaces. That's correct. But now here, where I for interface this time, I is generic. Jesus, just download the code. Link in video description. Generic type and generic type. Yes, that's correct. I is generic type, and the interface get generic type definition is the handler interface type, right? Of course, we could have written this down here actually, but then it's even more complicated maybe. So let's just use it that way. And then here we say select interface, and then a new type where I would call this interface is I, because this is the interface, and the type then is the implementation. This should be it. All right. So with that, then we gotta list a bunch of handler types, I guess. So now with a for each, that's correct, we can actually do that. And okay, not suggesting the curly braces. Let me just call this handler now. So for each handler in handler types, we want to do the following. Yep, services add scoped, handler interface, and handler implementation. All right. And in the end, then we simply return our services. All right. This should be it. And now in the program CS, our very last step, we can now write builder services add my mediator like that, and of course we add our reference like that. Okay, could have changed the namespace, but anyways, so our mediator is registered, and with that then all handlers will be registered. So now let's test that. We will create another folder. Add new folder, let's say features it is, and since I'm into vertical slice architecture lately, we add one little file, get all games or products, whatever it is. I just like the games examples. And now the implementation should be exactly the same as with the original mediator package. So here, all right, Copilot already suggesting something, but I have no DB context whatsoever here. So let's just say public record query is the I request returning a list of strings like that, and we add our little type here. And now Copilot suggests public class handler with the I request handler query list of strings. So our T response is the query, and the response is the list of strings. Again, why query here? Now this is CQRS in a nutshell. You would use for requests that are just reading operations, you would use the term query. You cannot change anything in the database, and all the other things, so updating, creating, deleting, is a command. So this would then be called a command, but both are requests in the end, right? So our class handler, this looks good. And then we have our asynchronous handle method, again with our query request cancellation token. And this is exactly what I want to do. I just create a list of some kind of games, but I got something prepared here, which I thought is kind of funny. So let's use them. All right. And we return the games. And that's pretty much it. All right. And now the last thing we need is our endpoint. So down here, let's just add a controller real quick, but make this here static as well, like that. So down here now, we have our API controller with a route, that's correct. And I guess Copilot, yep, is suggesting something. This is now the games controller. We could use the primary constructor here as well, of course. So here now we are injecting the sender. And now down there we have our get method, get all games, and it is using our sender object now, right? This is our stuff, not the mediator library. Send the query with the cancellation token, and it should return then the games. Now again, to make this a tiny bit smaller, what we can do here is the use the primary constructor and use the sender like that. So this is then smaller. And of course, you would also have the minimal API option as well. And again, I can already see the comments. Why use Mediator at all? Everything here is in this one file, so we could just use it. Yes, this is correct. But there are two things that I still like about this approach. When you want to use these interfaces here, they give you some kind of structure that is forced somehow. And again, regarding the program CS here, you only have this one little line, right? So you can just register them all your services, all your handlers here. It won't get bloated. So yeah, depends of course on your specific project, on your specific architecture you are using. Of course, you could add another extension method where you put all your registrations in there, but I just like this approach. But again, please, maybe I am missing something, so tell me that in the comments and I am happy to learn. Anyways, this is our our final implementation. Let's just try that and run this real quick. All right, it's running, and then we have this my Mediator HTTP. Let's not use the weather forecast. Now in this case, I want to use API, and I think Copilot just called the controller games. We may now send the requests. All right, and these are our games. Again, you can download the source code in the video description below, and maybe I will also upload this little package to NuGet. Let's just see, and then I will also put the link in the video description below. And if you want to know more about the concepts of Mediator and CQRS, then you should definitely check out this video here on the screen.